is Melanie Miku. She has blue hair and pronouns. She made a video documenting trans representation in video games throughout the years, and then Latina Parfait made a commentary responding to her. There are some points in Parfait's video, and they are not very good. The context is bare bones, but I really don't know what else to say. Though, before I cover the video, I want to talk about Parfait's disclaimer, which claims that the video is satire, but I'm not exactly sure what it is satire of exactly. It cannot just be satire. It has to be satire of something. And I don't buy the idea of this video being for ha-has, though I'll say why later. But yeah, now I can actually begin the commentary for real this time.
I was on YouTube and randomly got recommended this video by Melanie Miku called Transgender Representation in Gaming, A Brief History. You know, with a title like that, a title that good, we can already infer this is going to be one of the best videos of all time. C-A-P
I will not talk about the editing. I will not talk about the editing. I will not talk about the editing. I will not.
Especially when the thumbnail has Birdo, a character who literally is not trans, and also Vivian from Paper Mario, which you guessed correctly, is also not trans.
Can't do it. I can't take this shit no more, man.
I do really love how the trans community will literally grab at any crumbs with, any crumbs with their, crusty, grimy paws that they possibly can for those representation points. Like, seriously though, have we fallen so far as a society that we now think Birdo, a character who dresses up as a girl, is now trans? Hey, guess what, Jessica? You know your kid Timmy, right? Has he ever tried like putting on your clothes or ever picked up a Barbie doll? Wait, what? He has? Well, Jessica, it looks like your kid is now fucking trans, alright? Time to go get the surgery.
So, that just happened. Gotta love how Parfait completely misrepresents Melanie's video before we even get into it. Like, you couldn't even let her talk first. You just choose to be all preemptive some more.
Also, if it wasn't obvious enough, this is a person who throws around the homophobic and transphobic card like it's nothing.
Oh boy, poisoning the well! Melanie's video hasn't even started yet, and yet you still want to paint Melanie in the worst light possible.
Chicken.
Transgender representation in media has always been a troubling topic.
Yeah, I know, we aren't even 5 seconds in yet, and we're already stopping the video. Okay, now I just want to say, I am not transphobic, I am not scared of trans people, okay? Okay?
Literally not what transphobia is. Transphobia covers all types of anti-trans sentiments, not just being afraid of trans people. Kinda like how homophobia is not necessarily being afraid of gay people. And if this sounds like foreshadowing, that's because it is.
However, let me just say this has got to be one of the most ugliest stills I've ever seen in my entire life. Like, did you even try to make her look feminine?
Gotta love how this is barely critique, as Parfait does not say what makes Melanie's OC not feminine. As if the character doesn't have long blue hair and a blue dress. Like, I get that this video is partially riff, but your riff needs to make sense.
This straight up looks like a cross between Chris Chan
have a boyfriend. Tell me why I'm stuck as a virgin with Ray.
and My Little Pony, like if they had some mentally challenged baby together.
This comparison makes no sense, but okay, sure.
He's out of line, but he's right.
Ew, MCU clip, ew. Now I'm gonna take this video even less seriously. Also, calling your own statement correct reminds me of Jeb Bush saying, please clap.
Please clap.
What you know about?
Also, am I just a fully functioning retard?
Yes.
Or like what? Because she put they/she in their like pronouns or whatever. Is that even a thing? Like, I'm serious. I thought it was they/them. I feel like at this point, can we just mix and match? Like, what's stopping somebody from putting he/she? I guess nothing. Just like how there's nothing stopping me from identifying as a toaster.
Wow, 2016 came back with a vengeance. Like, is it really a problem that she goes by both they and she pronouns? Some people just accept both because they feel comfortable by being addressed by both. And it could mean mean that she's a feminine presenting non-binary. It's not like it really matters, honestly, so I don't know why you dwell on it. And I have seen people who go by both he and she pronouns before, such as a friend of mine, Shiny Piece. Also, ableist slurs!
Also, am I just a fully functioning retard?
In more recent years, sometimes we get absolutely fantastic trans representation, both in-depth or just casually. Characters that help truly normalize the idea of being transgender.
These aren't my words, okay? I'm just quoting a very based YouTuber named Poncho. Okay, YouTube, these aren't my words. Poncho said, "Why would I hate on somebody who is delusional?"
If somebody says the word transphobe or transphobic, you usually think of somebody hating trans people, and that's just stupid, because I don't see any reason why I would need to hate on somebody for being delusional.
So like, according to Poncho, not me YouTube, I ain't no transphobe, I am a she/her, a woman of color. According to Poncho though, why should we then normalize something that is based on a delusion, aka a mental illness?
Apparently there is a big difference between being a transphobe and simply siding with a transphobe. But you are still sticking by what a transphobe says. So you are in support of their transphobic notions. Because calling a trans person delusional because they are trans is transphobic. Even then, being trans is not necessarily based on a mental illness or delusion. For someone can be trans simply because they feel more comfortable as a woman in terms of trans women. Though if I can hit Melanie Miku for a second, Gwen Stacy as a trans character, despite how her transness is literally just fan headcanon and not actually official, unlike characters you talk about in this video who are officially trans. It's nice that trans people can relate to her, don't get me wrong, but this is why I hate Death of the Author. A character owning a trans flag and gaining acceptance from their father is not inherently a trans story. Literally anybody can own a trans flag, especially somebody who is canonically Gen Z and therefore would be more open-minded. And the friggin' Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs film is also about gaining a father's acceptance. It's almost like this is a common theme because it's relatable, and the color scheme doesn't really mean anything because the Pokemon Sylveon has the same color scheme as the trans flag. And no, Xanderthal, saying that someone's headcanon is not official is not transphobia. But if we can just thrust whatever headcanons we want onto characters we like, then that means all my favorite characters are now autistic because I'm also autistic, and you're ableist if you claim otherwise. Which, side note, hey Xanderthal, glad to see that we have another Turkey Tom in the building, with you throwing out potentially career-ruining accusations of transphobia based on nothing, simply because someone is skeptical of a fan headcanon because it's being declared as fact by the fans. And I'm not even saying that headcanons cannot exist outright, since headcanons are just part of fan culture, but fan headcanons are not comparable to characters that are really trans.
And then we have the majority of transgender representation. Pandering, poorly written, played up for jokes in a harmful way, or just shoehorned in.
Yeah, that's right, you guys. You can't make fun of trans people or gay people or joke about them at all because, you know, they are a protected class. But you can make fun of straight people as much as you want, and like really using a Family Guy clip for your example of all things. You're using transgender as a way for playing up what for jokes or whatever. Like, are you dense? Family Guy is a comedy. No shit, they're going to play something up for jokes. I'm surprised you didn't use a South Park clip though, because South Park is infinitely more edgy than anything Family Guy could ever dream of.
Isn't Family Guy still considered edgy though, even if it arguably is not as edgy as South Park? Like, honestly, this is just arbitrary. This is such a nothing point. Even then, she never said that you could not make fun of trans people, just that trans characters have been played up for laughs in a harmful way. Emphasis on harmful.
I just hate modern day society though, where like every person under the sun needs to be represented in media. Like, who the fuck cares?
That is not what Melanie said at all. She said that attempts at representing trans people tend to fail. Not that she always needs to feel represented, and representation must exist. This is a straw man, plain and simple. Even then, is wanting better representation necessarily a bad thing? I mean, there is a reason why old racist cartoons from the 1940s have disclaimers on them. Because they are poor representation, and standards have changed with time. And on the topic of standards have changed with time, we will be discussing an older character shortly. That's why I don't think this is a troll video, because there are attempts at argumentation, but they are just awful. I've seen points like this several times before. For example, I remember a Stone Toss comic making a similar point to you don't always need to feel represented directly. Even if Stone Toss is someone you shouldn't be taking seriously either due to his other political beliefs. Like, going who cares towards Melanie's claims is overall dismissive and disproves nothing. And even then, seeing decent forms of representation has proven to cause more forms of acceptance.
The transgender character in a video game starts in 1988 with the American version of Super Mario Bros. 2. It's a commonly known story today, but to catch everyone up, when Nintendo was developing Mario 2 in Japan, Nintendo of America decided the game was too hard and frustrating for an American market. So Nintendo of America took a Japanese exclusive game, Doki Doki Panic, and gave it a Mario themed coat of paint, and released it in stores. That means a lot of the enemies for Doki Doki Panic had become Mario enemies, with many of them sticking for good. Like the Shy Guy. Yeah, they started out in this game. They're not officially transgender representation, but god damn it, they're NB in my book.
I don't get how Shy Guys are transgender.
Wow, it's almost like Melanie said that they are non-binary in her book, meaning that it's not official, whereas the rest of the video is about officially trans characters.
Or unofficially transgender, like, it almost seems like you just want to shove LGBT politics into video games. What happened to video games being a escape into like another world? Why the fuck do I need to see and hear about modern day real life problems and politics in video games? Especially games meant for children like Mario. Like, why can't I just fire up a video game nowadays without being called a bigot, a racist, a sexist, and every other generic buzzword these lunatic far lefties love to use?
I don't know, Parfait. Sounds like a skill issue to me.
But another character absolutely iconic to this game would be Birdo. She's a boss character in this game.
I mean, I wouldn't really call her a boss character, more like a mini boss maybe, so yeah.
This is semantics, but okay, sure. How is Birdo a mini-boss? This is not explained. And can't mini-bosses still be considered bosses?
Basically, she'll shoot eggs out of her mouth, and you'll have to land on them and throw them back at her. However, for details about her being transgender, you have to check the manual for the game. Birdo's entering the enemy section of the manual goes as follows. He thinks he is a girl, and he spits eggs from his mouth. He'd rather be called Birdetta. Jesus Christ, poor Birdetta. Yeah, this is gonna be a trend from here on out. Trans representation being played up for laughs.
He thinks he is a girl and spits eggs from his mouth. He'd rather be called Birdetta. Like, I don't know, man. I mean, woman. Trying to be trans inclusive here to my fellow sister.
Like, real talk.
But yeah, that doesn't mean Birdo is trans, like, at all. At this point, anybody can think they are the other sex, and what? Now they are trans? That's not how it fucking works. You actually need to get the surgery and all that other shit before you become transgender. Maybe this is, like, too sensitive of a topic for all the handicapped people out there, and Queen Parfait is going to be cancelled. I don't know anything but that.
This is a classic example of transmedicalism. Not everyone can afford surgery, and not everyone wants the surgery due to personal reasons. Like, who are you to dictate who is and isn't trans? Again, this is another reason why I don't think this is a troll video. Terms like transmed would not exist if points like this were not made in seriousness.
I understand this was a different time. 1988 was a far less accepting time, but I don't really care. It was wrong then, just like it's wrong today.
Bro, like, what are you even getting offended at this point? Nintendo being transphobes in the 80s? You're getting offended over a literal manual from a game that's like almost 40 years old at this point.
She doesn't even really seem that angry though. Mostly just mildly upset and disappointed. Like, transphobia is a type of discrimination. Discrimination is bad. She has a reason to be upset. It's not like she's screeching into the mic or anything like that. Even then, is it suddenly a bad thing to show frustrations in a video? As several other content creators have done and have been successful with, voicing frustrations is such a common occurrence, especially in YouTube videos. And yet it's suddenly laughable when it's in the context of transphobia, even though saying that a trans woman merely thinks that she's a girl is transphobic, as it displays an anti-trans sentiment.
Saying something as tame as he thinks he is a girl and he spits eggs from his mouth, he'd rather be called Birdetta? Like, really? You're getting this butthurt over that? Like, this is a new low of patheticness. Well, is that a word? I don't fucking know. Maybe I'm just stupid. But seriously, this is 100% the type of person who would have a mental breakdown, freak out in a Walmart when she is in the checkout line and the cashier is like, will this be everything for you, sir? And she is like, it's ma'am.
Wow, my gamer, you really showed it to all those cringy SJW types. Seriously though, this is just an over-exaggeration of her reaction. Can we not?
Excuse me, it's ma'am.
The cashier is like, oh, sorry, sir. Can you calm down a little bit? Like, you're causing a scene right now. And then Melanie is like, God damn it, call me sir one more time and I'll show you a fucking sir. Then assaults the poor innocent Walmart worker trying to just do her job for a minimum wage, putting up with retard customers all day, and is just trying to feed her children.
And now we're pulling out ableist slurs again. Fun. Also, I like how at this point you're just writing fanfiction over someone who you don't know.
This blatant transphobia doesn't get a pass from me at any capacity.
I don't think Nintendo's looking for your validation. Sorry, not sorry.
Okay, but like, just because they don't care, that doesn't really mean anything. They are not looking for your validation is not a defense because it does not argue anything.
Like, they confirm her to 100% be a transgender woman in the most painfully transphobic way possible. Later games kinda downplay the fact that she's trans, but never retcon it. Some games would just try to avoid referencing her gender at all. Sometimes she's referred to as being of indeterminate gender, but overall her gender identity has been downplayed.
Is it really that big of a deal though? Birdo is like a side Nintendo character and is pretty much only in the spin-offs aside from like SM2, but I guess you need to let the entire world know how transphobic Nintendo is though, right? Right? Well, I guess slay, queen.
Miku's video is a comprehensive look at trans representation in video games though. She kind of has to go over both minor and major characters because it's a retrospective look at pretty much all trans characters in video games. So it does not matter how minor the character is, as long as they're trans and from a video game. And since Melanie is trans, it's only natural that she would be giving her thoughts on how the trans characters have been handled.
At least here in America. In Japan, I found the transphobia from Mario 2 continuing on for years onwards. In the Japanese manual for Super Mario Advance, for example,
Please, God, don't tell me he's going to read another manual and get offended over it again.
Birdo's entry roughly translates to,
thinks she's a girl and feels good one called Kathy. Take the mega from the mouth and throw it.
as of 2023, while America will gender her correctly most of the time and use she/her pronouns for her, Japan will consistently misgender her and use he/him pronouns for her.
Oh, the horror, bro. The horror of misgendering a Nintendo character.
I mean, even if she's not real, it still does show a level of transphobia to say that Birdo thinks she's a girl, and then do nothing to fix that by never gendering her correctly.
2004, Nintendo finally had a chance to redeem themselves after the problems with Birdo in 1988. Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door features the character Vivian. In the Western release of the game, her sisters will joke about her being ugly and the least desirable of the three sisters. But nothing to really indicate anything funky going on with her gender. That is, until we get to the Japanese release of the game. Gotta love Japan's transphobia, woohoo.
Yeah, I do not like how this is worded. If Melanie just said that the Japanese translation of the game was transphobic, then I wouldn't care. But to put the blame on Japan as a nation by saying, gotta love Japan's transphobia, comes off as just racist, honestly. It's not intentional, but it's just really poor wording.
Wow, different cultures have different beliefs and morals? Woohoo! Imagine being so ignorant and close-minded, you have the nerve to call the Japanese transphobes because they don't support your ideology. Crazy how far we have fallen as a society.
This argument is just like those religious people who blame their homophobia on their religious beliefs. You are quite literally saying that a difference in culture allows for discrimination. How am I even supposed to respond to that? That's like saying that countries where gay people are chastised and persecuted for being gay are right to do so because of a difference in beliefs. Even though gay people did not choose to be gay. This is an excuse and not an actual argument. Different people have different moral standards, that much is true, and morality is subjective, but moral standards can still be questioned, especially when you discriminate against others for reasons that do not hurt others. Also, insinuating that bigotry is a culture thing is racist. racist. Like, how did Melanie and Parfait, on opposite sides of the fence, both come off as racist here? In conclusion, I bet this bigot watches The Quartering.
In the Japanese release of the game, Vivian is heavily implied to be a trans woman, with Vivian's sisters constantly belittling her and misgendering her, and just overall being very transphobic to her.
Okay, I've been biting my tongue on this up until now, but the amount of media clips put into this video is just so obnoxious, especially when you use them just to mock her.
Poor Vivian. And sadly, unlike Birdo, Vivian hasn't really made any appearances since then to really help mitigate these issues. What a shame. This one, I'm not gonna lie, it's kind of sad to me because it just feels really realistic. You know, being chastised so heavily by your own family and flesh and blood.
Is that really true though? Like, I'm being dead serious. With all the support the Rainbow Mafia receives and how they are treated as a war veteran for coming out of the closet, are trans people really getting that much hate? Like, seriously, this seems like a stereotype that hasn't gone away and has been dead for, I don't know, the past decade or so, and you only need to bring it up to make it seem as if though others are all transphobes and homophobic, even though in reality they aren't. In reality, most people don't care. They just don't want to be spoon-fed this bullshit all day, every day, and be given labels like transphobic because they disagree with you on some irrelevant ass topic on Twitter.
Clearly you don't know what you're talking about, given the amount of anti-LGBT and specifically anti-trans legislation that has been published here in America. Like, I cannot stress this enough. This is a bad thing. And even if some people are able to come out as trans, some others are not. Some trans people, unfortunately, still do not live comfortably. And for all you know, Melanie is speaking from personal experience. A lot of trans people are not supported by their families. So this just makes it seem like you're using a cherry-picked sample of trans people who are able to live comfortably as a majority.
Pro tip number 80.
Super Bowl! Double-edged sword in a lot of ways. I'm happy we're getting as much representation as we are getting, but I kinda wish these companies would go a step further. Not to mention, so many of these companies will treat their employees terribly and support transphobic entities in the real world, and then turn around and announce their support with a minor game edition. Regardless, at the very least, this is a very fun discussion to have about this sort of thing. Happy Pride Month.
The town is like me.
Yeah, I had to skip a lot because there is only so much cancer one person can intake before they become radiated like a ghoul from Fallout, okay? To say that video was horrible would be an understatement.
And you played that clip of Melanie for what reason? You're not even responding to what she said, so there was no point in playing all of that. You were just saying that you had to skip a lot, which doesn't cover Melanie's closing statements. After that, Parfait adds to a point that I already debunked, and says that trans characters in video games are propaganda, which is stupid because trans people exist without political reasons. My final thoughts are to grow up.